So we need to find a way of translating these investments that we're making in historic preservation, in the restoration economy, as some have called it, into an economy. But one of the really interesting pieces is then once you think about what that economy looks like, what's the infrastructure you need to support it? And it's not, in some places in Western New York, it is things like reinventing our rail and doing water transport because it's more effective and efficient than a lot of fossil fuel-based transportation. But the other interesting things is when we look at bridge crossings, then we may not be looking at moving trucks at all. We may be looking at moving people between Toronto and the U.S., in which case all the energy that we've been spending on this Peace Bridge should probably be redirected at putting a high-speed rail connection between ourselves and Toronto. I mean, think about how much money, how much consulting fees we spent on this silly bridge to move trucks when we could have this really neat system that regardless of whether or not the bills move or not, we could see that team in 45 minutes or a half hour. They'd still be our team. So we can find win-win solutions on a different economic piece. But we're looking at, Riverkeeper has long advocated that whatever we do for economic development, we build in a place that reinforces our existing infrastructure instead of sprawling on that outer harbor, vacant land as our first priority. So the West Side waterfront is the area, if you've got dollars in your pocket and want to invest in the waterfront, is most ripe. It's got trails, it's got historic buildings, it's got parks, it's got water access. You can put in a canoe or kayak, you can fish, you can join a rowing club. It's ready to go. Go renovate one of those buildings, because it's the cost of renovating one of those pieces is the thing that's preventing people from getting in and being in those places right now. It's hard. Riverkeeper tried to find office space on the waterfront for a year. If you don't have $500,000, you can't do it unless you find a really nice landlord like our guy. But there's room for investment and activity there. The same thing in the cobblestone Ohio Street corridor. Why that is not our highest priority for this Route 5 project, we can't figure it out. It would even support the casino for those people who are liking the casino. But that area, again, is ripe for development, and we keep on putting it on the back burner for some grand vision on the outer harbor instead of supporting these small local businesses that would really cultivate and diversify our economic development base instead of having one giant golden egg.
Yeah, so we're not obstructionists. We want to see all this stuff happen. We're as frustrated as anybody. It's just the process that's being followed is just very frustrating.
Right. I think one thing that keeps came up in all the individual presentations and then sort of reiterated itself over and over throughout the questions is that there's this either-or scenario in all of these different projects. It's either the environment or economic development, or it's either economic development or the fate of this neighborhood, or it's Outer Harbor option A versus Outer Harbor option B. And there's each of these have massive trade-offs that in many cases will lead you towards the no-build option, as they say when they're doing these environmental impact statements. And that's really not the case in any of these situations. So we are being presented with a series of false choices. And I think one of the things that the Partnership with the Public Good is wants to get across, not just on the waterfront, but across all of our platforms, is it's not an either-or scenario. There's a better case, and we should be following that path that leads to the greatest public good for the most possible people. I'm going to give a short pitch. There are more information packets outside on the table. Please pick one up if you want to learn more about the Partnership for the Public Good. The 2008 platform is out there. There's endorsement forms if yourself or your organization would like to endorse the PPG 2008 platform. You'll be joining 35 other organizations that have already. I want to thank all the panelists, George Grasser, President for Partners for Livable Western New York, Harvey Garrett, Executive Director of West Side Community Collaborative, Julie O'Neill, Executive Director of the Buffalo Niagara Riverkeeper, and I would ask them each to stick around for a couple minutes if there are individual questions, and if anybody wants, if you'd like to share with people how they can get involved right now.
And I want to throw one last thought out there. We've talked plan a couple of times, and George mentioned that there's already been this big charrette and all this plan never went anywhere. Whatever planning we do, it needs to be a plan that we're creating, that we're going to follow, not a plan that we're putting together for somebody else to follow. The West Side Community Collaborative has this mantra that we don't wait for the city, we are the city, and we really are. If we all come up with one plan and it's the plan that we're all going to follow, somebody else can't co-opt that plan. We are the city, we're the voters, it's our money. So when we talk about planning, we're talking about a plan that we're going to create and that we're going to follow.
and tell people like Mickey Kearns and Congressman Higgins with this whole pond hockey thing, when they do something right. Because they are only hearing from us when they're doing things that we're not happy about. So let's reinforce some of the good things that have been happening. The council, the whole council in supporting, you know, an at-grade solution is really
Absolutely.
expressing wisdom, and they need to hear when they're on track. So catch them doing something good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. I did.
Give you what you were looking for?